Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to acknowledge conventions such as WhedonCon. WhedonCon is a fan-generated charity event for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Firefly, and all Joss Whedon creations. It is scheduled for October of 2020 and is held in Los Angeles, California. Portion of the proceeds benefit the Los Angeles LGBT Center as well as the Ron Glass Memorial Scholarship. See details at WhedonCon.com.
On mic today, I have the honor of talking to Joe Alves. How are you doing today, good sir?
It's good. It's very hot in California right now.
It's pretty hot in Oklahoma, too. I'm not sure we can compare notes there. Yeah. Mr. Alves, I am a huge fan of your work on the Jaws series, but I have to tell you, I'm a really, really big fan of Escape from New York.
Escape from New York. Yes.
So I have been wanting to talk to somebody about that movie for ages, and this is a chance I'm finally getting.
Great. I'm open. Anything you want to ask.
Well, when I heard the description of it being derelict in on a grand scale, is that what how you describe it?
No, actually, I got involved with John Carpenter and Deborah Hill because of my agent, Phil Gersh. And what happened was, after Jaws 2, well, I directed a small sequence in Jaws 1. And then on Jaws 2, I became a associate producer, production designer, second unit director. They fired the first director. I brought in Jano Schwark. So I directed 85 days of second unit. So I was really pursuing directing. And there was a movie I had called Out in Front. It was about Formula One driving. And Bill Gilmore was an executive of this company. And we traveled to all the Formula One locations, Monte Carlo, France, England. And I had Jim Brolin, who was going to play the older driver and then a younger driver. So this is all really pretty exciting. And got back, and the company got sold out to somebody else and whatever. So that project was gone. And then a week or two later, my father died, and it was just a depressing time. And Phil Gersh called me because I had been pursuing directing and sort of turning down design jobs, substantial ones actually. So he called me, he says, Joe, I think it's time that you go back to work. And he says, I have a young couple that, he represented. And I think, you should meet them. So I met John and Deborah. Now they had done Halloween and, very small movies, successful, but maybe $300,000, and I'm coming off of Close Encounters and Jaws 2 and, multi-million-dollar movies. So this was their big movie, I think $5-6 million. And I met with them and I liked John. John was sort of laid back, he just, okay, this is good. Deborah was very aggressive. Got to get this going. So I, being sort of production designer, a director, producer, we got to get going. We got to find locations, So Barry Bernardi was the location scout. And I said, well, what have we been scouting? Well, we haven't really, everything was just sort of low key. There's a different generation, just sort of laid back. This was in 1980. And I said, well, there's a big scene where we need a bridge and a wall. So probably we could find a bridge that nobody's using, and then we could build a wall and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we ended up finding something in St. Louis. Found a bridge that nobody was using, good substantial bridge. And I thought, well, I could just build a wall. So I ended up building a 200-foot wall, 25, 30 feet high. But then we also found a wonderful old trade station that nobody was using. So it had a really good texture. And then New York, John and Larry Franco, who was a first assistant, we went to New York and we went up to the towers, the Twin Towers that were still there. And we looked at New York, and God, this is just too much for this movie to capture New York. So what we found in St. Louis, there was this urban renewal, that there was this whole downtown section that was being, not used. And so we had pretty much control of doing whatever we wanted with it. And I had a good decorator. I never worked with her before or since, actually, was Claudia. So working with John, I would plan all this. Now, this was different for him because I don't think he had a production designer that was so quite aggressive, and I'm coming from doing so many shows and doing night galleries. I did 25 sets a week, and the directors had maybe a day or two to, so they pretty much shot what I gave them, and so I sort of had that attitude, and John was perfectly fine with it. So that's how it started, and then it went from shot to shot. Do you have any questions? I could go on about it.
I'd love you to go on about it because this is all fascinating for me.
Here's the situation. It was low budget relatively to me, but it had, Dean Cundy was a heck of a cameraman. I mean, I really admired his work. For an example, I built the United States Police area, their sort of offices and stuff in San Fernando Valley at the dam there. And I made it very militant, very black, because it was United States Police. So we had these various sort of A-frame structures, black and white, but we built an entry structure, and it was where you come in to sign in. And so we built that, we collapsed it. This is how inexpensive we wanted things to be. We trucked it all the way over to Liberty Island. And we took the last ferry out so we didn't have to get our own boat. And we set that structure up. And Tommy Atkins, the actor, came down, was a long shot of the Statue of Liberty. He came down, walked down there and go to the entrance post. He signed in, and then he walked in. And as he panned across, it was United States Police, there was a section of black, and Dean cut there. And then we packed the thing up, we trucked it back, we set it up in California and at the Sepulveda Dam. He put the camera in the same position and then moved it. So there was like no cut. It was just went from New York to California, and no tricky effects. It was just good camera work. So then Tommy comes out, and now we're in New York. So that whole complex was supposed to be on Liberty Island. So that was one situation that was that worked out really good. And so and John was getting, I think, more familiar with working with me and the crew, and so I would lay some things out. Like there was a shot of an airplane crashed, and what's his name? The actor. I just lost it.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt. Yeah. So Kurt walks in front of the crashed airplane. So I needed airplane parts. So I went to Arizona, where they have a huge field of airplanes and parts and things, and was making a list of things I needed: a wing, a tail section. And this guy there said, there's a DC-8 for sale. Now that's a prop plane, but if you took the props off, it would look like a jet. I said, well, where is it? He says, it's for sales are like only $5,000. It's in St. Louis. I thought, oh my God, what luck. So I canceled everything that I was ordering there, we went to St. Louis. We bought it for like $5,000. And Ward Welton, who was my painter on most pictures, was doing a lot of the lead work in the construction. So he cut it up in pieces and trucked it in at night. So we didn't even have to pay for permits. I mean, we were just doing things under the table. So this was interesting. So John was saying, okay, what are we shooting today? Oh, we're shooting Joe's shot. So my shot basically was to start off in this rural, rubble area, and then you pan across and you see Kurt, So that was the shot. And so we set it on fire. So it looked like it just crashed. Took the props off. It looked really good. So I said, Don said, cut. So I told Roy Arbogast, who's my special effects guy, who was actually with me on Jaws 1 and 2 and 3. And he actually did the much of the physical look of the shark, the skin and all that on Jaws. Anyway, so I told Roy, I said, cut, put the fire out. He says, I can't, it's magnesium, it keeps burning. Mm-hmm. I told John, okay, we got to rush and take 2. So basically that's how it went. I mean, it was pretty much shot by shot, setting things up. The pod, I remember John says, we put the president in a pod, so if the plane crashes, he's safe. So I made this sort of egg-shaped thing and painted it orange, and then we put it in this rubble, and the decorator just loaded up this whole area with just rubble and junk and stuff. Claudia did that, so it was great. Anyway, so then we got the egg, and that's where the president was supposed to be, but the egg was missing. It pretty much went that way. We built most of the stuff in St. Louis, a location for one night in New York, and then pretty much I know. So we couldn't afford a stage, we were just trying to bring the budget down. Mm-hmm. Lexington Avenue, I built a wall. Kurt Russell jumps over the wall and he goes to the chock full of nuts. And he turns and goes inside the chock full of nuts. Well, I built that in the desert. They have, as it were, we would shoot a Paramount lot, just areas that we could shoot movies. So I actually built the whole front of chock full of nuts. And then he comes in and he finds that girl there. In any case, John had the ability, as did Alfred Hitchcock, to shoot half sets. In other words, with Hitch, you just built what you were going to shoot, and he had it all planned in his head. With a lot of directors, you build everything, and then they walk on the set and say, "Oh, shit, this," and then you don't see half of it, So anyway, I built the chock full of nuts, and if you would have panned just a few feet to the left, you would see cactus from the desert we were in, or pan here. So, I mean, in other words, he was so easy to work with that you could say, this is it. Where some directors would say, well, gee, I need a little bit more here, or I don't have a reverse. John would say, okay, this is what I got. So he comes from Halloween and stuff like that, where really, really low budget. They didn't build anything, to getting stuff to shoot. Another thing we built was the helicopter, not the helicopter, the glider lands on the top of the Trade Center. And so we built that in the desert. And that's another thing. If you pan over here, you'd see cactus. So we did that, and we had a helicopter. Let me tell you, there was a lot of good effects in that movie. And I took John and Deborah to meet with effects guy, I'll think of his name soon, who did Star Wars. He was a guy I had worked with before. And we went and met them, and we came out of the meeting, and Deborah said, "Oh, it's too expensive. We can't afford that. How are we going to do all these visual effects?" So I was at a party. This friend of mine, Guy Magar, was a director, did small movies, and I had known him before he got directing jobs, and we had some projects we were going to do together. He's a writer. And he was doing this monster kind of show, and he had this young guy who was making the monsters and doing illustrations for him. And the young kid's name was Jim Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cameron said, "Well, look, I work at Ronnie Harper's. I'm losing some names here. And we could do it for you there, or do it much cheaper." So anyway, he got the first gig, and so he became obviously a huge director,
Mm-hmm.
But that was, so he actually worked for us, and Roger Corman, he was working for Roger Corman. A lot of young directors started there, Scorsese, and so Roger Corman's company did all the visual effects. So the plane gliding through New York was all done there, miniature, and then it lands, and then we had a plane that we would drag across. So that was pretty interesting to get Jim Cameron, and then later, he went on to do so many, huge movies. So that's pretty much it. Anything?
What's you're saying that's really striking out at me is when you're talking about Mr. Carpenter looking at what you want to build and saying, I need this part of the set, and I need you to build this. And that means that he has in his head exactly what the shots are already there. He just has to put them on film. And I find that's real talent in my mind. And then he could say that to somebody like you, and you could just translate that into wood and nails and knock that right out.
Exactly. And we could go to a location that we had, and walk around and say, okay, I need this much, so that Claudia didn't have to decorate the whole place. Mm-hmm. We knew the helicopters are landing here, so do a lot of junk here where they land, and then they turn over here and they walk down this alley. So it was a fun movie to do, and it was trading things. I remember Larry Franco, we were on the bridge, and I was bringing in trucks and things with a forklift. And he said, "No, I need the forklift." It was not like we didn't have two forklifts. We had one. So we had to trade off when he needed to move a car, and I had to bring things in. So what was good about it, it was a tight show. It was, we shot some stuff we never used. Matra in Atlanta, we shot a sequence there that was cut out for some reason. And then the time watch. Do you have one of those?
I do not.
Hang on a second. I'll be right back.
All right.
I was doing a thing called with Sideshow. They do a lot of stuff, and they gave me this.
Whoa, that is a work of art right there.
Isn't that cool?
That is.
I don't know if the battery's low. There's a battery in here, but yeah, I mean, it's really nice leather, and and that's what Snake wore,
right,
for the countdown. These are available somewhere. I don't know, but I think anybody who is a fan of the movie would probably like to have one of these.
I would definitely agree with that. That's because that timepiece is iconic there. So it's.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize it was so damn big. So yeah, these big arms. So that was sort of interesting, you know.
And what I'm loving about, and when you're saying that you could just make exactly what you see, I find it much more rewarding to look at a movie like that where all the shots are practical and you're working with camera work and editing, compared to the movies today that use a lot more CG, which has its own place. But I just find that a movie like that, you get to the suspense of disbelief a lot faster.
What happens with CG, I have nothing against CG, but so much is done in CG.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for an example, Close Encounters. That was the biggest set. It was huge. It was a football field wide, a football field and a half long. And Stephen, earlier this year, I was getting an award, and he did a video, and he said that was still the biggest set he ever worked on. But for an example, when Melinda Dillon and Dreyfuss runs up the hill, and then they look over and they see the big arena. Today, they would do that all in green screen.
Mm-hmm.
I built a mountain, 7 stories on rollers that we could roll around. And Doug Trumbull was doing the visual effects, and we had a 150-foot front projection screen. So we shot that stuff in 65, so you would lose any definition. But we had physical sets, so they had to climb up the set. We did locations in Devil's Tower, and then this rock that I made would match that. So just that's what happens then.
Mm-hmm.
Today, because they do it in green screen, they're getting a little bit better. But my problem with it is that because they could do it so easy, if you had a car crash before, you had 2 or 3 cars crashing. Now they could do 100 cars crashing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and freight trains flipping over, and it becomes too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so you lost the subtlety of a Hitchcock, of somebody taking a shower, and he creeps in. You know, I mean, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you mean.
Carpenter had more of a Hitchcock approach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a little bit more subtle, and obviously at Halloween and you know shows like that, he displayed that. So yeah, I would compare John with Hitchcock in that respect. I did another picture with him, but I was a second unit director and concept designer, and that was Starman. And we worked well on that together too. So, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to point out Starman is kind of having a moment now. A lot of the people that I've talked to are starting to say, hey, that actually was a pretty good flick. And it was kind of glossed over when I was younger because I was very young when it came out. But it just seems like a lot of people are starting to finally appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to show you something.
Okay, sure.
I got all these. I don't know why I kept this, but
Somebody's got to.
When we were doing Starman, we needed a spaceship coming down. Now, you know, I've done things like that before in Close Encounters, and so I thought, no, how about something that you really don't see? It's reflected from the sky and reflected from above. So I took a cue ball.
Uh-huh.
You see that?
I see. Mm-hmm.
And I made that the flying saucer that came down. So all you saw was a reflection.
Of whatever it was around.
Yeah. So I had somebody working for me get it chromed. Then who was it? CJ? I'm trying to think who did the visual effects. It was the same people that did Star Wars and stuff. And I gave them this. I said, you know, physically to shoot it. They ended up doing some sort of graphic thing, which didn't work as well as I thought, because I thought if they had a miniature and you came down, you physically, you're aware that there's something there, but you don't see anything specific.
Right.
So that was the spaceship. Why I kept it, I don't know, but.
Well, it's a conversation piece, and it's a piece of film history, really.
Yeah. Anyway, that worked, and I did a lot of second unit. That traveled all over Monument Valley, whatever. Just took a car. So that was it. That was my last dealing with John. Deborah, we kept friends for some time. Had some projects, but she died fairly young. She was dating a good friend of mine, and we saw each other quite often. But that was pretty much it.
I wasn't expecting this, but when we were talking about Escape from New York, it just occurs to me that you're talking about a point in your career when you've got production design down. You are a master at that point in your life, and you're really looking at the ability to jump into directing, and you have an appreciation for both roles, is what I'm pointing out there.
Well, what happened, then Jaws 3 came.
Sure.
I was doing a picture called The Ninja. Irv Kirshner was director, worked on it from New York, scouted Japan, about 6-7 months. And it was 20th Century Fox was purchased by somebody, and they canceled anything that wasn't shooting or wasn't cast. So I came back and I went to see my good friend Verna Fields, who won the Academy Award for editing Jaws. And we worked together on Jaws 2 when they fired the first director, and I brought Jeannot in. So now she's a vice president, and she's a place that she had an office and had another spare room next to her. And I'd go visit with her and talk, and Carl Gottlieb, and we'd sort of hang out. And she said, Joe, you can't believe this. The studio is going to make this movie called Jaws 3 People Zero. Joe Dante was going to direct it. And it's to make fun of the people that did their biggest, most successful film.
Uh-huh.
And making us all look like idiots, basically.
Okay.
And from what I heard, so this was the studio's idea. They could make money if they made 2. So 3 was going to be a joke. And nobody was really interested in doing 3. Zanuck & Brown was out of it. And so I think, I can't swear by it. I think Spielberg got a little upset about them doing this movie, making us look sort of silly.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan Landsberg, who did That's Incredible and a lot of television, sort of less expensive stuff, he got the rights to the Jaws. And basically, Verna said, Joe, go see him, try to save the franchise because they're just making a joke out of it. And basically, I went to see him, and he's got this idea he wasn't going to build a shark, he's going to use stock footage of sharks. And it took place in a water theme park. Richard Matheson was the writer, and he said, well, maybe I'll let you produce it. I said, no, either I direct it or, So anyway, I went scouting, basically. I'll give a quick story about that. And Richard and I were scouting these water parks, and they had this film underwater in 3D with all the kelp and stuff. And it was really interesting going through. So we came out and he looked, he says, what, 3D? I said, no, Jaws 3D. Take the onus off the third. Nobody was doing 3s, maybe Rocky, but to make it 3D. Well, anyway, I did an illustration of the shark coming at you, Jaws 3D. And I showed it to Landsberg. He got all excited. He said, let's go to Universal and talk to Sid Sheinberg. And Sid said, oh, can I have this? And I said, of course, you're the president. I want to take it to Wasserman. So that initiated Jaws 3D and me directed it. And then couple problems were that there are no good cameras. We had to make a camera and all that. But that's sort of how that went. And I don't know how we got diversed into this Jaws 3D thing. But
no, it's I know people don't usually refer to that movie first when they talk about the Jaws franchise, but I love experiments in film, even when they don't quite land where we think they will. So I am all about talking about Jaws 3D.
Well, I had a problem in this respect because my first big directing gig, I didn't have Final Cut.
Mm-hmm.
So I cut the movie about 2 hours, the same as 1 and 2. And Landsberg, all he cared about was the money, and he cut it about 25 minutes out of the movie so they could have 5 screenings instead of 4. So the criticism I got was that I rushed the movie too much.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the personal things were cut out, and they just went for the action in 3D. But I must say this, I have talked and done podcasts with directors like Kevin Smith. I've talked to Quentin Tarantino, all
Mhm.
these, and my writer that wrote the Jaws book. I'll show you that in a minute. They're all in their mid 50s. Greg Nicotero is big Jaws.
Mhm.
So they were very inspired by Jaws. They were very young. By the time Jaws 3 came out, they could go to the movies by themselves. And so the 3 Jaws movies were very inspirational to these young people who are now successful directors.
Mhm.
So I have had very little criticism of Jaws 3 from those filmmakers,
Great.
So, yeah, it was the critics that got me. Well, Jaws 3D made a lot of money. Jaws 4 sort of died. But so I think the first 3 did financially quite well. Anyway, that was my directing thing, and then went to a lot of development stuff that didn't happen. Anyway, oh, can I show you this?
Please.
That's why we're there.
Lovely.
This is a book. It's on Amazon. It's not very expensive, and it has so much detail. I mean, it's got shots like this. The making. It's got just go creep. Oh, here. This is how when I designed. That's my sculpture of 4-foot sculpture, and this is how I laid it out based on real. So anyway, while we have your audience here,
Sure.
the writer Dennis Prince did an incredible job, and we did a book for Catalina a couple of years ago. Catalina Island had in the museum, they had a Jaws exhibit for like 6 months, and so we did a smaller book. Greg Nicotero supplied a lot of stuff. He had made the 3 characters full size with hair on their, because he has a company, and they used some of my original storyboards, which are now, pretty expensive, and so we had that book for some time, and they were selling it there. Then Dennis got Titan to buy it, so they did a hardcover, and they've got everything in it that all the storyboards. I mean, I did something like 200 storyboards, and
Now, for the benefit of the people who are listening to the audio version of this, the book is called Designing Jaws. It's a very large format book. There's a lot of detail in those pictures.
yeah, and it also has stuff that I didn't think you'd be interested in, but we used to do is break down. This is how you get a script, and you just get a yellow pad, and you go page by page, and as a designer, you go, let's see, exterior Brody's car or something, and then where was it? Where does he drive? What location? So that's what a production designer does. He takes the script, breaks it down for all the visuals, and some are locations, and some we have to build. That, and one more thing, this is people that are interested in buying the storyboards or photos. That's on Joe Alves. It's called www.joealvesmovieart.com.
And I'm going to have links to all this stuff in the show notes of my website. So if you're missing it here and you don't get a chance to write it down, that's a good place you can go to get it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what I'm selling. But it's been interesting, Aaron, in this respect. I did 1, 2, 3. Then I did a number of development things. I worked on a picture that I was going to direct for like 7 months, and did a lot of illustrations, and I had a crew, and it was Japanese funded. And then the producer that got the funding came in and said the funding stopped. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to go. Eventually, I went back to work. I got married, and that one didn't happen. And went back to designing, reading scripts and doing things. But the industry is very, very difficult. I guess, I was given a Lifetime Achievement Award at the beginning of this year by the art directors, and Greg Nicotero introduced me, and Steven Spielberg did a video saying how great it was. We worked together and all that. So that's all very rewarding, and people say about my success and stuff. But on the other side, that we don't know about a lot of filmmakers and people in the business is how many things that you've tried to do that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
You get a script, you love the script, you develop it, you talk to actors, I had more conversations with Ned Tannen, who was a president, and we had a relationship because we were interested in cars and, Ferraris and stuff like that. So, and then he went to become president of Paramount, and I would send him scripts, and it would be, oh, Joe, yeah, this is pretty good. But at this time, I don't think it's the kind of project we want to do. And I've heard that so many times. At this time, it's not a project. So in the film business, no matter how successful someone seems to be, you can be delighted by the success, but there's so many things that you wanted to do that didn't happen. It just for financial reasons or getting someone to distribute it. So it's a difficult business, but I was very fortunate to work on different projects. My last couple projects were actually animated projects because I started, my first job was at Disney as an animator or assistant animator, So it was fun. Right now, I do sculptures, my own different sculptures, wood and stuff, to occupy my time.
As somebody who loves movies and loves the industry but doesn't work in it in any meaningful capacity, I got to tell you that some of the things that frustrate me most are reading, a story from 10 or 20 years ago saying this project was considered, but they didn't do it for whatever reason. And it's like, I would have loved to have seen that. I wish somebody had made that movie.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I had interesting film called Adventure One, where you fly past the sun and you find another planet, which is a mirror planet to this, and you find all the same people with different personalities. In other words, if a nice guy here in that planet, he's not a nice guy. And it was sort of frustrating, but extremely interesting. And we had a lot of really wonderful things designed. I think Matthew Broderick I was really trying to get because I needed a young guy, and that never happened. But and the money ran out. But that's film business. Basically, I guess I have to be thankful. After Jaws 1, 2, and 3, I totally forgot about Jaws and sharks. And I would say it wasn't until, turn of this century, we had a 30th year anniversary of Jaws, Martha's Vineyard. And some people there, one of the collectors, Jim Beller is a big collector, and Chris Kisha, they're big collectors of Jaws stuff. They were saying, "Oh, you should sell copies of those storyboards." Mm-hmm. And I had given copies to Greg Nicotero and a lot of people, so I made copies, and then they sell for like $20. But this one has an original. That's an original shark on it. So I sell that for like $50. So anyway, I had I didn't want to deal with all that, but Jim said, "Oh, I'll handle it. Just send me the stuff." And then I started getting more and more people sending me, "Oh, can you sign this?" And then I started doing shows, with Jeffrey Kramer and and Carl Gottlieb, and so we would sit there, and Carl would sell his book. I would sell the storyboards, and we did that quite often. I did one in New Jersey. I did one in Lexington, Kentucky. That's where I met Dennis Prince, because he had done a book on monster model making things. Anyway, so this century, it became, suddenly Jaws was alive again. And I would go to these shows, and these kids would say, "Oh, would you sign this?" And, they're 10, 12 years old. And I say, "Your parents weren't born when Jaws, this is a 40." So this year has been incredible because it's the 45th anniversary. And Universal called me, very nice lady there. Said, "Joe, Universal they're doing a new 4K DVD. Could you do podcasts and sort of promote it?" So I did one with Kevin Smith. I did one, I don't know, 4 or 5 different people. A number of parts, selling the DVD. She sent me a bunch of them, and hats and stuff. So it's suddenly, and now with the pandemic that we have, for some reason, people probably don't have any place to go. They're sort of, "Oh, look at my collection. I think I need this." And so they sent me things to sign, and I have to have a little note say, "Look, I will sign one thing," but they'll send me like 6 or 7 things and want me to sign it for nothing.
Sure.
And, at the shows I get $20. And I said, "But to be fair about it, some of the stuff I see on eBay, so I will sign one." And but in the last couple months, I've been getting so many. I got one, Aaron, yesterday from Russia. I have
Wow.
never, and big fan. So that was pretty fun. So I signed a couple for that guy. And so Jaws has come alive a lot this year because of the anniversary and the new DVD and signing. And I did have people, 2 collectors that collected a lot of drawings and photos. And one guy came and had me sign like 200 things, which he paid me for. The other guy shipped me a whole bunch of stuff. So it's really weird that you go years without any recognition, and then suddenly 45 years later, it's alive again, So that's what's happening.
Well, I usually try to end each show by making sure that we track where you're going in the future so people can keep tabs on you. Are you still doing these art shows, or do you have plans to once the pandemic is past?
Yes, I would do them. Right now, we can't do them,
Sure.
There was one I was supposed to do in England, and I didn't feel like traveling. That was at the beginning of the pandemic. And then they're just canceling all those things. Yeah, because there's so many people. They're all together and they line up and you sign. And it's very nice. We did a book signing in Sacramento, because Dennis lives up there, and Greg Nicotero was with me, and we did it at an old bookstore, and we had a line of people, and Greg wrote the introduction, so he's a big Jaws fan, and I'm trying to think if here's a picture with Greg, and
That's a good shot right there.
And Roy Arbogast and myself. And we just had, I was amazed how many people we had that wanted to buy the book, and big Jaws fans. And they're saying, "Oh, I've seen it 100 times." And, anyway.
It's timeless.
In the meantime, now I'm just doing different sculptures. I like to sculpture because I did the shark, the small one. I worked with the ichthyologist to get it accurate. I did some aliens on Close Encounters. So in retiring, I just went back to sculpting, and it was fun.
I would love to sit here and talk with you more about your sculpting and your animated background, and maybe we can get you back on here. I'd love to do just that.
Hey,
But you got your book and your website. Do you have a social media presence at all that you follow, or do you just prefer to stick to email?
just pretty much email.
Fair enough.
There is Instagram.
Okay, I like Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram. My daughter set that up. But
Sure.
anyway, that's basically it. Or you get my email. That's it.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure your Instagram feed gets linked in the show notes as well. Joe, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure and an honor, and I got a whole lot out of this, and I can't wait for it to go live. So
It was good. Nice talking to you, Aaron.
nice talking to you. Best wishes.
Take care.